Good evening, everybody. It's Thursday night. It's 8 o'clock. We're on the Smart Connector group, and I'm here with a wonderful lady, Amy Rowlinson. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me.
Now, Amy and I have actually known each other for about a year, haven't we, Amy?
Yes, over a year now, Jane. It's
Yes.
March 2019, I think, was the first time.
It was, yes. And so we were both students together on Rob Moore's Marketing Mastermind, weren't we, Amy?
Very keen students, that is
Very
the case.
keen students, and we both won a prize.
We love prizes.
Yeah, that's right. So we're back for more, aren't we, Amy? So we're still there, still students of Rob's, and it was just an amazing experience. I'm so glad that we had that opportunity before lockdown to really do those masterminds in person, because it gave us the opportunity to get to know one another. And it's not quite the same, is it? If we're just we're doing these Zoom masterminds now, and it's nice, but it's not quite the same, is it? How do you feel about that?
No, I agree. I think the whole point of a mastermind is the relationships that you form with your peers in that group, and the sort of moments that you're sharing at the particular time in your business, and that you're quite vulnerable because you're letting yourself become very open with the group, and you know that they're going to trust you and they're going to look after you, and they're going to help you to progress and move forward with your business and your life. It's not just business that you sort of, when you're in a mastermind, everything gets discussed. And I've just seen that Nick Bradley has just joined, and he's in our group as well.
Oh, hi, Nick. It was amazing, actually. We met so many really, really, really fantastic people. It was just such a nice group, and I think it took us a couple of sessions to warm up to each other and actually get to know each other. But we had a WhatsApp group, didn't we? That we had to be very accountable. It was very carefully controlled, so we all had to post our results every week and talk about our challenges, and I think that helped in terms of us getting to know one another as well.
Absolutely. I think it was critical actually having the WhatsApp accountability, because we were tracking our wins, our losses, our commitments, the challenges that we were facing, and we were really reaching out to everyone to help us, which made a massive difference to the progress and picked us up faster than if we'd waited just sort of every month to go and talk about something. It was instant response from the group, which was really, really helpful.
Yes. So can I ask you, Amy, what actually brought you to the group? Why did you join a marketing mastermind?
So at the time, I was working with Dan Hulbert, and he said, let's go to this free day. I've got a free ticket and we'll go and see what he's talking about. We were under the understanding there would be an upsell. We weren't sort of shocked, because we know that's how Rob works. And so when it happened, and it was what he was describing just seemed to be perfect for us at the time. And we really enjoyed the fact that it was all talking about branding, about marketing. And there's so much change with technology and how you can deliver your products nowadays. We just felt it was the right decision to do that particular course at that time.
Yeah. And of course, you launched the Property Vault podcast, didn't you? You didn't have it before you joined, or did you?
No, so Dan had wanted to do a podcast on his own. He'd been to one of Rob Moore's previous courses that he runs for podcasting, so he'd got quite a lot of skills and knowledge in that area, but he hadn't launched anything yet. He was going to do something before, and then it made sense that we did something together. So the Property Vault podcast was born, and we launched within a couple of months. We launched on the 1st of May in 2019, and actually it ran a full year. We had 64 episodes and got into 82 countries, so it was a really successful podcast.
82 countries. Isn't that amazing? I mean, I know that you're in love with podcasting, Amy. I love it. Nick Bradley, of course, he's absolutely smashing it with his Scale Up Your Business podcast. It's just so much fun, isn't it?
It's brilliant. I think it's a really good way to connect with an audience and deliver such a variety of content that is there for people all the time to access in their own space at their own time, because we all live busy lives, and it's difficult to tune into lives and then find that material, where with a podcast it's just in one place, and it's a really good resource to be able to share with people, and you've got the access to the book recommendations, to particular downloads, and just have a variety of guests that can come on the show.
Yes, exactly. It's. I think the nice thing. I'm also love listening to podcasts, and I think the nice thing about it is it's a bit like eavesdropping on somebody else's private conversation. If it's an interview, of course. I mean, sometimes, of course, podcasts are not interviews; they're just somebody talking about their thoughts and their experience, and I like that as well. But I just love to put my little earpods in, go for a walk, and I look to everybody else as though I'm by myself, but I'm not actually by myself. I'm just listening to somebody else's conversation, thinking, oh, that's so interesting.
Absolutely, and there's so much wealth of knowledge in a podcast. There's so much variety there, as well as pretty much anything for any topic that you could tune into. There's millions of podcasts and millions of episodes. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to decide what you're going to tune into. It just depends on your mood at a particular time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity, I suppose, like, YouTube or anything else really these days, because of the power of technology and marketing automation and so on. Actually, whatever your interest or your passion, you can get out there and connect with a niche audience. And I think that is the thing about it. So for me, obviously, my podcast is the Smart Connector, because I'm passionate about the power of connection, how to cut through the noise and stand out to your ideal people. And for you, your passion is the power of why, isn't it, Amy?
It's absolutely that. So that the whole concept of focusing on why just sort of came to me overnight, because it's a decision that we weren't going to pursue with the Property Vault podcast came about. But I love podcasting and I really wanted to continue with it. So with my new podcast, it's all about why people do what they do. It's their raison d'etre. It's how they combine their passion with their purpose and have a plan to achieve it. And it's one of those things that it came about because as a coach, every day I'm working with people who are asking why are they doing what they're doing of themselves. And it just made sense for me to deliver the podcast of Focus on Why, to talk about people who are at various stages of their business, career, their life, and talk about why they're doing what they're doing, in the hope that it would inspire other people who may be struggling with what they're doing or how they're living their lives, and in the hope that it might provide some kind of relatable conversation for them.
Yeah, and it's a fabulous podcast. I've listened to several episodes myself, so if you haven't listened in already, I must definitely endorse Amy's podcast. It's fabulous, especially the episode with me. It hasn't been launched yet.
It's not out yet, but it will be great, Jane, I'm sure.
Okay, right. So, Amy, let's get on to talking about your personal why, your business why. When we spoke before the podcast went live, I was actually talking about my book, The Smart Connector, and about looking at some of the businesses in that in that context of that book that put purpose before profit, and how those kind of businesses tend to be the most successful because they've got a purpose that's greater than themselves. It's not all about them. When businesses put profit first, it's all about, Nick's just saying both your podcasts are awesome. Thank you, Nick. Oh, that's such a compliment coming from him.
Well, actually, Nick's episode's out next Friday with me. So his is on the 10th of July. Yeah. So yeah, small plug for Nick's episode there.
Okay. Yeah. So, we're looking at business wise. So I actually did a list that I mentioned from my book. So Ben and Jerry's, they want happy cows, happy farmers, and a happy planet. L'Oreal, of course, they want us to believe we're worth it. We like that message, don't we, Amy?
Absolutely.
Apple want us to think different. Skittles want us to taste the rainbow. GoPro wants us to capture and share life's most meaningful experiences. Nike wants us to step out of our comfort zone and just do it. Amy, have you got any examples to add to that?
Well, this is all about taglines, isn't it? These are the things that they want us to remember, what they want us to repeat. And there's a great book from Bill Schley, and he talks about the microscript. And this is essentially cliches, metaphors, things that get passed down from generation to generation. And we've been using this for years. It's just all about storytelling and captivating our why in a series of a few words. I mean, if you want to think about M&Ms, melts in your mouth, not in your hand, that kind of scenario. And you just remember it. And diamonds are forever. I mean, that's a great one. So it's all about what we repeat and what we remember, because then they know that their message is being heard.
And whether it actually resonates with us. So, for example, I think the thing about Apple Think Different, well, that's an amazing tagline, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All of them they're powerful. Those are powerful, powerful taglines. And the interesting thing about them is that they're not about individuals. They're not about the CEO of Apple or the CEO of L'Oreal or whatever. They're about you, aren't they? They're a message to you, aren't they? And is that what a business why is all about? Is it about your customer?
Essentially it is, but I do think there is that personal connection, because whether it's your personal why or a business why, people are people, and whether that's hiding behind a facade of a name of a company or an organization shouldn't really, for me, make much difference. Essentially, you have a vision and you want everybody in that company to be aligned with that vision. So by having that sort of mission statement or that vision for the company and making sure that everyone is aligned with that, that's how they can then bring everyone to the future, take them all through the future. And it's not about the sort of short-term shareholder returns. It's about that legacy that company is creating, and that's what's going to last the test of time.
Exactly. And I used to work for a brand identity agency. In fact, I grew a brand identity agency very fast in London. So, I mean, this was something that we looked at all the time. And of course, it's also about brand equity, isn't it? Because a lot of these these powerful companies with these fabulous taglines, they've been building that perception in the market and in the mind of their customers for many, many, many years. And there is a company called Interbrand who actually value brands. And of course, this is so critical, isn't it? This is something that contributes massively to a company's brand value, doesn't it?
I absolutely think so. I mean, it's all about what, as you said, what is it delivering to the customer? What is the customer getting from that experience? And it is an experience. It's how you're identifying and also creating something where they have a sense of belonging, because as humans, we just crave that need to feel that we belong. And if we've got this culture that's being created and they want to have that connection with it, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that sense of connection with people and building your tribe.
Yes. So, Amy, you've interviewed a lot of people now, haven't you, for your podcast? You mentioned, did you say 65? Was that the number?
It's a little more than that. It's just over 80. So
80. Wow.
It's been a bit of a crazy period. I think I've just got caught up in the whirlwind of this whole podcast, and which is absolutely fabulous. I've absolutely loved it. And I think what's happened is because people have been available and they want to talk about why they do what they do, they've all jumped at the chance. And I haven't really had to chase many people. A lot of people have stepped up and said, oh, may have you thought of this person? And, oh, could I come on your podcast? So it's been really easy. And I just thought, well, why not interview as many people as I can? And I was pushing out 5 episodes a week, and I was getting great feedback from people, but they did say, please slow down. So I've now sort of scaled it back to 3 a week. And with that, it's going to eventually probably go down to 2 a week at some point. But at the moment, whilst people are free to share, I'm welcoming them on board.
And of course, it's a good time because we're all at home. It's been difficult to go out. As you said, people crave connections. So when you're talking about something as personal and as important as people's why, it really resonates with people right now, because we have a powerful need to feel that connection when we're not getting it. We're not able to go to places and actually hang out with people in the way that we've been used to doing. So I can totally see why it's taken off, like a rocket. So, Amy, let me ask you, have you seen any themes? You've been interviewing people very, very intensively for quite a while now. Have you seen something that has come up time and time again in people's story?
I think it's always very personal. A lot of people have got very personal whys, and I think one thing I have noticed is that the people who have a very strong why and an understanding of why they're doing what they're doing has come as probably as a result of some kind of personal event, so something quite significant that's happened in their life, which has triggered it and has enabled them to maneuver into a position where they've now taken responsibility for what they're doing, and they're now empowered by what they're doing because they have that clear focus on what it is they need to deliver. And this is the thing that, we're talking about connection, we're talking about belonging, but also with the whole sort of, people think they have to find their why. And there's the most incredible book, and I'm sure you've heard of it. It's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And there's this whole he who has a why to live he who has a why to live for can bear for almost any how. And that's something that he quotes in the book. It's not his words, it's Friedrich Nietzsche's, it's another psychologist. But it's all about what it is we're doing to control our circumstances and how we can control our attitude, and why do we come to work? Why do we inspire people? What is it we're looking to do? We just have a purpose, and often that purpose is linked to fulfillment. If we help other people, we feel fulfilled, and then we feel that we have a sense of purpose.
Well, we're all interconnected, aren't we, Amy? I mean, that's really what my book was about. It was about connection, that no man is an island. We are all intrinsically connected to one another. And so we all have this powerful desire to have an impact, don't we, on other people and on the world that we inhabit before we go. And in fact, even after we go, I mean, I think about that sometimes, and I think, well, legacy, what will people remember about you when you go? What are you passing down to your children and your future generations? A lot of the time it's about that as well, isn't it?
Oh, completely. And I think for me, it's just that transition between moving from existing to living. It's that sort of rolling in, day out, and not actually thinking about what it is you're doing, but having that purpose, because who you are and what you do and what you have is all within your control. And what you have, what you want to have, determines who you become and what you do. So this is a question that I ask people: is what is it you're doing? Are you living or are you existing? And are you in control?
That is a very, very powerful question. So let me ask you, Amy, let's get personal now, and let's talk about your why. And have you ever found yourself in a situation where you felt you were existing rather than living? And if you did, how did you get out of it? I know that's a lot of questions all in one, but anyway.
It's actually quite a simple answer, really, Jane, because like many people, I didn't focus on why I was doing anything, and I was existing in life until around about my early 40s. And it was, I thought I knew what I needed to do, but that was just on a daily basis. That was just sort of the running of the chores and doing things for the children and just being busy and maybe ticking off a few bucket list things off my spreadsheet. But I didn't really have a why. I didn't really think what I was doing and why I was doing. I didn't even think about a legacy of what I might be leaving behind. And it was only when I started sort of studying more and reading more that I realized that people all over the world were living and not existing. And I was intrigued by what it is they were doing and what was driving them. And it was after that I decided that I could create a business that would allow my husband to retire, that gave me an intense focus on delivering a sort of fairly short-term goal, but that was going to give him a huge amount of freedom and time for us to then spend a huge amount of time together. And that because I had that clear focus, it really drove me to succeed. And it was then that I realized that by focusing on your why and having a purpose, having a plan, that you could actually then be more definite in what you were doing.
Amazing, amazing. So we've got a few Facebook comments coming through, Amy, but I just wanted to quickly take this opportunity to say, if you have any questions to Amy, and if you're watching on a live stream on my page or on my personal or Smart Connector page, please come to the group to ask Amy questions about your why. She's here, she can answer questions, but you have to be on the group, otherwise we don't see them. So that's just a quick aside. So Amy, so you talk about that time in your early 40s, or when you were perhaps a little bit younger, that you were more or less on autopilot. That's a very familiar story, I think, with a lot of mums, because you know, it gets so intense in the early days, doesn't it? And I know obviously everybody has their own different family structure, but you know, it often does fall to the mum to do the bulk of the childcare, and it can just go in a blur, can't it? We can go from day to day just basically grateful to crawl into bed. So do you have any advice to any mums who are perhaps trying to work, trying to combine, and you know, the demands of running a family with a job or any kind of part-time work, and they're actually in that place at the moment? Of course, we've got to add this whole issue of homeschooling, haven't we, which must be really tough, even though obviously some children are back at school now. But what's your advice to any mums that find themselves a bit lost and a bit directionless at the moment?
I think it's a really good point, because I spent 12 years at home with the children, and I was always thinking, oh, what could I do between sort of 10 and 3? And I wasn't quite sure, because I think that the advances of technology now have opened up a whole different area of potential, which is fantastic. But that sort of 10 till 2 time was just such a wasted time for me, and I always spend time reading, but that's not wasted. But for now, I think it's all about finding something that you absolutely love, understanding what the world needs, finding something that you could be paid for, and what you're good at, and combining that. This is the whole ikigai concept of working where you've got your passion, your profession, your vocation, and your mission, and you can combine something that you really enjoy and actually monetize it within that time if you are at home. I mean, obviously homeschooling's got that extra dynamic that I didn't have to have, but that's a whole different thing. I mean, my children are much older now, they're 15 and 17, and they're a lot more independent, so that's been easier throughout this period for them to be self-managing. But I think it's just trying to work out what matters to you, and working out how you could then bring that into something that you could monetize if you so wish, if you need to, but really working out what it is that you could help other people by doing.
Yeah, because as you said, it really has a lot more meaning, doesn't it? If you are able to make an impact in the world. I think we all are very, very driven to do that. And, you know, that's interesting that you say that, because I was just, when you were talking, I was going back to my time as a mum when my children were young, and they're older as well now. And I was thinking, you know, I actually discovered writing during that time. And what I used to do is, like you know, the children were really tiny. My husband wasn't around very much. He was working. And so, you know, they were at nursery. I didn't really have very much time. And, well, my younger daughter was anyway. So that was when I discovered writing. And I used to block out a couple of hours a day and just say, right, today I'm going to do some writing. And I started off writing. It was a novel. It never got published. And my husband was very critical. He's like, why are you bothering to do that? Why can't you do something that, my husband wasn't very nice, why can't you do something that earns money? And it's like, well, you know, look, I'm spending all of my time working because, you know, you're not around. So I'm working a lot. So I just carve out a tiny little bit of time for myself to do something that makes me feel like me. And for me, that was the writing. And for me, that was just like such a huge discovery. But I didn't monetize it. I did not monetize it while they were small. And it's only now, or I would say recently, and when I've started to kind of create a lot of content, that I've actually really feeling the benefit of all of those hours and hours and hours that I spent perfecting my writing, so to the point where it just is, it's easy now. So, Amy, how important it is, do you think, to combine monetizing with your why and your purpose in the early days?
Well, I think I'll just go back to something you just said there, Jane, and that's very, very much that everything you're doing will be of value. So don't knock things. So like you said, you're writing at the time, just because you didn't monetize it then, it's actually helped you hone all of those hours, the whole 10,000 hours of Malcolm Gladwell. So actually, even if you're not monetizing it now, you could still do something with it later. So, and I think being a mum, and that is a great focus. I spent a huge amount of time with my children, and I did a lot of volunteering for other charities and cricket clubs and rugby clubs and things like that whilst I was spending a lot of time with the children. And that was a decision that I made with my husband at the time. So I'm not going to change my decisions with retrospect. I did what I thought was the best thing at the time, and I loved that period, and I wouldn't change that. But moving forward, if you wanted to do something where you could make the most of that time that you have, again, it was all about focusing on the purpose. It's all about what is it you're trying to do? Who are you trying to help? And how is that going to be fulfilling for you?
Exactly. So, right, we've got a question coming through, Amy. So my wife is struggling with the two wee ones. Okay, that's got to be somebody from Scotland. I'm afraid, just as Facebook user. So, but anyway, okay, two little ones and wanting to do art and lacking sleep as well. So, Amy, what advice have you got for the lady who's got two little babies, wanting to do her art and short on sleep?
So is that the children wanting to do art, or is it her that wants to do art?
She wants to do her art. She wants to paint.
I mean, it is so hard. I can't describe that sleep deprivation in those early days. It is so debilitating. So I really do feel for her. It's really difficult. I mean, if you do have an ability to structure your day such that you can share the responsibilities between partners, and understanding, this is something that's really useful, is called the power of when, and it's understanding your natural chronotype of when you are best going to perform during the day with your natural rhythms of your sort of circadian rhythms. And there's 4 different chronotypes. You can do it really, it's a free test online called the power of when, and you'll end up being either a lion, a bear, a dolphin, or a wolf. And this is actually quite a useful test to do, because then you're going to find out the best time for you to sleep, to exercise, to eat, to work, to plan your diary. For couples, you can have sex, whatever it is, it works out your natural rhythms, because this is a throwback. This is something that is genetic, that is part of you. And if we're in a society which is 9 to 5, and we tend to have to subscribe to that. But with the benefits of lockdown, we're a little bit more flexible with our hours. So this is where you could actually get back into sync with what your natural rhythms are. And for me, I am out of that bed so early. And I'm a massive lion. I literally have to creep out the room because my husband is a bear. But understanding that he's a bear and I'm a lion, and my son's a bear and my daughter's a dolphin, which is a very light sleeper. Just like dolphins in real life, they have 2 hemispheres and they switch between, they turn one off because they need to be on constant alert. And this is what happens is, when we used to be in a tribe, we used to have to look after one another and have those different sleep patterns to protect ourselves. And that's still within us. So going back to the question about how you're going to struggle with lack of sleep and juggling, it is going to be difficult, but it's finding those times, if you can, of when would work, and seeing if you can pair up and help one another.
Yes. And I remember for me, I just said, well, look, between 1 and 3 is my writing time. And I don't care. Yeah, I know all the other mums, they're meeting up in Pizza Express and they're going to have lunch together. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be there, because between 1 and 3 is my writing time. And you just have to prioritize it, because if you don't, no one else is going to prioritize it for you, right?
Absolutely, and taking responsibility for what's important. It is those priorities, but it is important to have some downtime. You have to recognize that you can't just continuously strive to be at this end point that you're looking for, because your life is right now. Your life is this moment. you're not going to get this moment back again. So don't waste it.
No, that's right. And we've got he's such a lovely husband. He says, thanks, I do my best to help. I'll try to help more. Oh,
fantastic. I'd like to know whether he's a bear or a lion or a dolphin or a wolf. It'd be useful. Yeah. It only takes a few minutes. There's just a few questions.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so Amy, what's been your most memorable interview? Is there any one that stands out for you that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, it's got to be Chris Leake. Chris Leake had the most emotional experience with me, and it was just an incredible interview. So I spend 10 minutes with each of my guests just beforehand, that I run through what it is that they're going to share with me. And so I sort of know where I'm going to go with the conversation. And I also sort of forewarn them that because we are talking about their why, that it is personal and it can be quite emotional. So when I started talking and recording with Chris, he starts talking about his journey of what he had to do. And he did this most incredible Enduroman arch to arc triathlon, which is 87 miles running from Marble Arch to Dover. He then swam the Channel, which took him 15 and a half hours, and he didn't wear a wetsuit. And then he cycled all the way from Calais down to the Arc de Triomphe. And he did all of that in under 69 and a half hours, back to back. Now, his retelling of that journey was so emotional that he broke down in tears several times. And we had to sort of pause the recording, and he kept saying, "What are you doing to me?" And I said, "It's not me. This is you sharing your why." And because it is so emotional, that's why you managed to achieve that incredible feat. And he did achieve, he's now a world champion, a world record holder in that time, and also being without a wetsuit. And this is 26 weeks just after he had a shoulder operation. So this was the most incredible feat. And the reason why is because his dad got diagnosed with early dementia and sort of other things. I think it was a Parkinson's. And it has torn the family apart, and it is very emotional. So Chris was fundraising for Parkinson's UK. And it was just the most emotional experience to hear him retell that. And I really felt like I was running those miles. I was in that cold water with him, and I was on the boat when he threw the goggles at me, and then he was sort of cycling and getting all the cheers and sort of recognition along the way. It is such a great podcast. If you want to listen to that one, it would be fantastic. And he's actually got a vote at the moment for Parkinson's have nominated him for Fundraiser of the Year, so you can go onto Twitter and vote for him, charity awards.
Oh, that's so nice. But I'm definitely going to listen to that episode, Amy. I haven't listened to all of your episodes, but I'm going to listen to that one. I'll look out for it. Okay. Yeah. Oh, somebody, Facebook user, agree. Amazing podcast. Vote Chris for Charity Today awards. Okay. Right. So somebody else says The Power of When. Is that a book?
Yes. So it's a book by Dr. Michael Breus, but it is also an online quiz that is free. So you can do the free quiz. It will tell you immediately what you are, as in which chronotype you are. And then if you want to find out more, then you can go and find out the book. I've got it on my desk here, actually. So it's quite a big fat book. There's quite a lot there, but that's what it looks like, The Power of When. And it's really useful because it will go through all of your food, your diet, your sleep patterns, best time to go for exercise, everything. It's a perfect day in the life of your chronotype.
Awesome. Right. So Amy, I'd love to hear where next for you, because I'm sure you've got some big ambitions. I know you, Amy. Remember, we've been together on that mastermind. I know that you've definitely got something ahead that we'd love to hear all about.
It's funny, Jane, you say that, but actually with this podcast, because it's just so it's so caught me by surprise that actually I'm just going to let it organically go where it needs to go, and that's going to be governed by the listeners and where it's going to be taken. I've had a lot of requests for people to sort of take it into a sort of live show, and that sounds like that's quite fun, so that might be somewhere I go. But actually the focus at the moment is just to enjoy helping other people to in so many areas to be empowered, listen to the podcast, be inspired. And that's my mission at the moment, is just to continue to inspire and empower people, because it's just so much fun. And I know I'm getting so many messages. I'm been so focused on pushing out these podcasts that I forgot about how much was going to come back at me. And it's become a full-time job managing messages, but I absolutely love every single one, and I will reply to every single one.
I just had this image of you while we were talking, Amy. I know obviously we're in lockdown at the moment, so the live events are a bit of a no-no, but to be honest, I could definitely see you on stages across the US. So many people suffer from a lack of direction, or not really being able to understand what motivates them, or where they should go next. It's a really, really big issue for a lot of people, and I'm sure that your message will be received very well live, as well as obviously on a podcast. Is that something that you'd like to do?
Oh, I'd love to do that. I mean, it's really funny because we're talking about what we used to do and not thinking that it's always relevant with what you're doing in the future. So I used to be a recruitment consultant, and I used to interview hundreds of people in a week. And then when I went on maternity leave, I left that job behind me. But it's interesting now that all of those sort of interviewing techniques that I had has actually been really useful in eliciting information from people and bringing out the best in people, because that's what my role was for years, was bringing out the best in people and helping them to perform in a role. And essentially that's what they're doing on the podcast. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So any plans for a book, Amy? Because
I get asked about that every day. My husband said, have you started writing it yet? Have you started writing? So that's another thing that I've been doing throughout this entire time. Since I started on this new journey, I decided to journal. And journaling has been a daily activity. And I'm just going to look at the date. Yeah, okay. So how many days have I been journaling consecutively, Jane? Have a guess.
85.
Okay, it's 1,303.
303.
1,303.
1,303 daily journal.
This is it.
Oh my goodness, that is phenomenal.
So I guess that might be my book, huh?
Oh my goodness, well, you've got it all there. I mean, you don't have to do anything else, do you?
It's been really interesting. So I decided on the 6th of December 2016 that I would journal my activities towards getting my husband out of his job in terms of providing an alternative income through the property portfolio, purely because I needed some help, and that help was only going to come from me. So I figured that if I wrote about it every day, I'd be my own cheerleader, and I'd see myself struggle, and I'd see myself the next day pick myself up again, and then I would see that looking back. And you know how you can modify your memory? Well, with this journal, that it's not modified, I can see every single challenge that I've faced and overcome, and that has really helped me, because it hasn't been easy. And I have struggled, and it was pretty much against my flow. There were lots of things that you have to do when you're working in property that weren't in my my flow. It wasn't my thing. I'm a creative person. I'm a people person, and a lot of it required a lot of due diligence, a lot of admin, a lot of data, a lot of financial decisions.
It can be boring.
It can be really boring. But you know what? I look at all of that, and the financial literacy sort of journey that I had to go on as well was a huge sort of hike. But I look at that now, and it's given me so much. I'm so proud of what I've achieved because of seeing that journey of where I used to write my goals. And at the time, I thought that was a really big goal. And I look back at it now and I'm like, okay, well, it wasn't quite that big. But I have to recognize and appreciate that at that time, that was a really big deal. And I shouldn't undermine my own sort of journey at all.
Yeah. Oh, that's really, really amazing, Amy. That's fantastic. And I can't believe that you've actually had the self-discipline to keep that daily journal going for all those days. I mean, that's phenomenal. That really is. So you haven't just got one book, you've got a series. You've got the whole Harry Potter.
Well, I think that the podcasts are actually going to make some great stories, because there's just so many incredible journeys that people are sharing with me that they will be fantastic as a sort of series as well in the written word.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so we'll subscribe to the podcast. Okay, so people are getting very excited about it now. Right, so good advice, thanks. There's lots and lots of appreciative comments coming through, Amy. So, right, let's just talk about for a moment about how we've brought our own kind of mission and vision and so on into the mastermind, because of course that's something that we have shared together. So how have you brought your power of why into the mastermind, and how has it helped you being part of that mastermind group? Let's talk masterminds for a minute.
So, okay, so what happened at the beginning of March this year, or not beginning of March, end of March and the beginning of April, was that I sort of, I don't like the word, but I did have to pivot, and I moved. And so what I'm now doing is I'm now creating a new route, a new path for myself, which is congruent to the coaching that I already do, which I absolutely love. I love working with people and helping them just create the best possible version of their own lives. It's just so fulfilling. And I can see people who are achieving incredible things that they didn't think were possible, and that's been great. And that's where I thought, well, if the podcasting could be that opportunity where I provide on a bigger platform that same sort of motivational movement of transformation, because I think that's probably a word that it describes what's most important to me, is that transformation of of where you are to where you can be, and seeing that gap. And with the mastermind, it keeps me accountable, it keeps me on my toes, it provides me with an incredible mix and diversity of different industries, because not everybody is in the same industry as us. And that for me brings huge amounts of value, because of that sort of cross-fertilization of different ideas and concepts that work in one industry that you can apply into something else. And for me, just understanding how business works and how people work is just a fascination that I have, and it's an ongoing one. I mean, we study people forever, we storytell, we're so enthused by what we all can do, and we thrive on that.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Amy, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you here. And, just for anybody that hasn't listened to Amy's podcast, head on over. It is absolutely brilliant. And for anybody that wants to get in touch with you, Amy, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, I'm on all social media. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, so and Twitter. So it's Amy Rowlinson, that's Rowlinson. So you'll find me that way. And Focus on Why. I've got a Focus on Why Facebook group and page, and also Instagram. So follow me there. And it's Amy Rowlinson. I think it's amy.rowlinson on Twitter.
Fabulous. Okay, well, thank you everybody that joined us tonight. It's been really valuable to have your comments and your support and your interest. So thank you for that. And thank you, Amy, for being here as well. It's been a really wonderful interview.
Thank you, Jane.
And I'll see you soon. Bye.